which is cool. Yeah, kind of a big deal. No, it's just like, I look at that as more of a way to get feedback on material that I'm working on, more so than it is about like, yeah, I'm an HWA member. It's more about people who are also writers and producers and stuff like that, looking at your stuff and being like, hey, like this works, this doesn't, this is great, this isn't. That's really what it's about for me. But went with self-publishing. The hardest part was deciding whether or not to do a hardcover. That was difficult, and working on the cover was difficult as well. A lot of people wanted hardcovers,
right?
Which is weird.
But you went with
went
with a soft cover book.
I have it's available hardcover, softcover, and ebook.
Okay.
Because so many people asked me for a hardcover, so I was like, all right, fine, I'll do a hardcover. But that was the hardest part, and the cover, working with a cover artist, and I think that was an important lesson as well, is learning to kind of go hands off, because I was really, and I never do this in anything, I never micromanage, but when it came to the cover, I was so anal about it, and I really made artist's life a living hell, and I apologized to him a million times, and he really nailed it. He nailed exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah, it's a nice design.
And the funny thing is, say it again.
It's a really nice design. It's kind of simple, but really engaging. I love it.
Thank you. I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback about it.
What's your artist's name?
Sami Ahmed. And he did a beautiful job, and I couldn't be happier with it. I'm actually going to go with him for the cover of the second book, if he'll have me. I'll beg him to let me hire him again. But yeah, that was the hardest. And finally, at a certain point, a friend of mine who's an artist, she said, he knows what he's doing. He knows what to do. Like, just trust him. Let him do his thing. And I was like, you're right. Her name's Megan. She's a beautiful artist. I was like, you're right. I'm just going to trust him. And then I wrote back to him, and I was like, hey, man, finish it however you want. And he knocked it out of the park.
Awesome. How did you wind up with Spooky House Press?
Yeah, Spooky House Press is a little imprint that I wanted to put together to kind of not only promote my own work, but to have an outlet for other horror writers that might be interested in having a story published online, or maybe be part of like an anthology of other artists. Like I would just do the editing at that point. I wouldn't be in that, but I've gotten some nice stories submitted already that I'm going to be putting on the site in the coming weeks and months and stuff like that. But I really just wanted to have my own imprint, and I kind of got the idea to do it while I was doing the podcasting that I worked on, but I wanted to kind of put everything under one banner, everything that I did. So I created the Spooky House imprint, and it comes from my nephew. My nephew, we have this haunted house. It's a doll house that my mom and I decorated to make spooky. And it's a haunted dollhouse, basically. And we put all the Universal monsters and all these other spooky characters and Halloween characters in it. And my nephew, I think he was like 2 at the time, or maybe even 3, he was playing with the toys. And I was like, oh, you like the spooky house? And he looked up at me and he went, spooky house? Almost like a question. And I was like, oh, that's too funny. And my friends and I just started saying it as like a little in-joke. And then when I wanted to come up with an imprint or a little label or whatever you want to call it, I thought, well, I'll name it after what my nephew Braxton says with Spooky House, just as like a little homage to him and how much I love that little dollhouse.
What a good uncle. And so leading up, what was your decision to say, okay, it's ready, now it's time to publish this thing for the world? What was that like?
What was that? I'm sorry?
What was that like? Like, okay, now I have to do it. It's done, right? I have to get it out there.
It was when I got feedback from 2 of my professors, an author I really like named R.K. Combrink. He looked at a few stories and wrote some really nice things about them. I got some feedback from another author named Carl Paulino. He's a horror author as well. and my primary beta reader / editor and formatter, Louis Marisi. When all of their feedback came back and it was universally positive, my first thought was, oh snap, okay, now it's time. Now how do we do this? And then it turned into, okay, let's get the formatting ready. Let's do this. Does that story fit? Does number 12 fit? No, it doesn't. Let's take it out. And I just felt like it was the right time. Halloween was approaching, and I was like, well, it's a bunch of spooky stories, so it probably would be smart to have it out in time for Halloween. So not going to be celebrating Halloween too much this year for obvious reasons, but I wanted to do something to celebrate the season, and if it's releasing the anthology, then great, so be it. And that was really the impetus. I wanted to have something for Halloween. I wanted to have a little spooky fun, and the book was ready. It seemed ready. The feedback was positive, so it was time to pull the trigger. And
when was it finally published? Official date?
It was published on September 24th was when I officially launched it and announced it. In all three formats, ebook, paperback, hardcover, everything was that day. The ebook was up a little bit before that, but I wasn't ready to formally do anything with it. So once everything else was ready, I was like, yep, okay, now's the time. And just in time. Just in time for Halloween.
Did anybody buy it yet?
That made me happy. There have been some sales.
Okay.
I'm happy with the feedback I've gotten. I'm happy with the sales. I didn't expect to sell anything. I just wanted to write it for people to read and enjoy, and just I wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm going to make so much money doing this or anything like that. Like, if I wanted to make money, I would put the hardcover price higher. I don't know. Like, so many hardcovers are like $20 to $40, and I was like, I'm good. Like, I don't need it to be that high. Yeah. So, I don't know. And actually, I was on the phone with the people who produced the hardcover today, and they were like, you should probably raise the price of your hardcover. And I was like, I'm not. I don't really care. Like, I'm not looking to, make a ton of money. So, the idea was just to have something that people could look at and enjoy. And one of the nicest things that I've heard so far from a friend of mine was, I'm in awe that I know the person who wrote these. And that really, it almost made me cry when I read that. And one of the sweetest things. And so for people to actually be reading it, and people, buying multiple copies, like it sounds silly, but like I know someone who they bought a paperback, they bought a hardcover, and they bought the ebook.
Wow.
And I'm like, you don't need to buy 3. And they were like, well, I want to support you. So I was like, well, that's really sweet. And another friend of mine bought like 2 copies for him and his girlfriend. It's like, dude, you live together. You just need one. So I don't know. It's just really touching and sweet. And I'm trying to do a lot with it. I'm just trying to get it out there. And if people buy it and they find like 1 or 2 stories in the whole collection that they like, then to me that's worth it. Absolutely. And that's how I feel with anthologies. Like, there was one that I read recently, and 1/3 of it I wasn't a huge fan of, but the rest of it I loved. And if that's the case, and that's the case, I feel great about it.
So what's next?
The next anthology, I'm looking to possibly release it maybe in time for summer. It's a lot darker. It's uglier. If the theme of the first anthology is people and how they deal with emotions and situations, this one's all about fear. And it's a lot about my fears, and it's a lot about fears of my generation. That might give you some ideas as to what it could be about. There's a lot in there about the economy. There's a lot in there about society in general and the planet. A lot of. I go back and I read these stories, and I'm like, Jesus, these are dark. And I'm just really surprised at how dark they all are so far. But I guess that's a good thing. So it's exploring like a different aspect of horror in that way. Whereas this first one is a little more ethereal. It's a little more spiritual and about, not spiritual in a religious sense, spiritual in the sense of how people react to things. This one is a lot more just ugly. It's not gory. Again, I'm not a gore guy, but it's a lot uglier and paints humanity in a darker light for sure. It's more Tales from the Dark Side, whereas the first one's Twilight Zone.
Gotcha. A few more questions that I ask all my guests. Do you think we all have an artist inside of us?
I'd like to think we do. I like to think that, it doesn't matter what you do. If you do it well and it makes you happy, then it makes you an artist in a sense, right? So if you're a chef is certainly an artist because they're doing things with food that no one else can do, and they're thinking in a creative way. If you bring creativity to your passion, or you bring creativity to your job in some way, even if you're not a painter, actor, singer, writer, whatever, yeah, you're an artist for sure.
Any advice for up-and-coming authors?
Yeah, don't be afraid to be as weird as you want to be. Don't be afraid to explore material that you might have been afraid to initially go into, and also just write the damn thing. Just like do it. Just do it. Put pen to paper. Hit the keyboard. Do what you got to do. Have fun with it. What does it matter at the end of the day, right? Like, you're going to write a book. That's awesome. Self-publish it. Put anything out that you want. You don't have to go crazy with marketing. If you're not super happy with the end result, then you're not happy with the end result. You can get it next time. That's the editing process. That's the rewriting process. Like, don't be afraid of the things that are inside you, because more often than not, they're the right thing.
Nice one. How can people connect with you and obviously check out the book? Any social media you want to plug?
Sure. I'm on the Instagram at Robert Ottone, RobertOttone. You can also find me at Spooky House Press on Instagram as well. You can look online, spookyhousepress.com. You can find the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and some other online retailers as well. And, it's called People, a horror anthology about love, loss, life, and things that go bump in the night. And it is by me, Robert Ottone. And shoot me a line on Instagram. I'm good about getting back to people. And if you just want to talk, if you want to submit a short story and you want me to read it, or you want to if you want me to put it on the Spooky House website, cool. I'll do what I can, whatever you want to do. But yeah, that's really how you can get in touch with me, I think.
It brings a smile to my face, having seen this young man go from a little boy to this published author. It really is quite spectacular.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I'm really proud of what you've accomplished. Not many people can say they've published a book.
Well, it really means a lot, so thank you.
Absolutely. And the final question, why does art matter?
Art matters because it's meant to push society forward. Art is meant to talk about the things that we're not supposed to talk about all the time. That's why I'm so afraid of things like cancel culture and not allowing people second chances and stuff like that, because art's supposed to be scary and it's supposed to be a little ugly and dangerous and stuff like that. To cut that off at the knees doesn't make any sense. We're not going to learn anything. We're not going to progress as a culture if we're not letting art be free, and we're not letting people explore art through different ways, right? So art to me is meant to push things forward, push society, push thinking forward.
And creating.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, once again, congrats on being a published author. Check out the book, everybody. This is a good Halloween treat for everybody, for sure.
It is. It's trick or treat early.
Yes. But the trick is on you if you don't buy it, so check it out.
That's the best plug ever.
I had to throw that in there. Well, thank you, Robert, for being on the show. It has been an absolute pleasure talking with you, and best of luck. I'm looking forward to the second anthology next year.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And